I have the honor of introducing our guest speaker today. Uh, she's been spiritual since she was a little girl. She might tell that story. Involved in lots of different religious practices and programs. The two things that are noteworthy for me about Martha Creek is that, first of all, she'll like drop an idea into, I think it happens to everybody. It happens when she does it to me. She'll drop an idea into my head and it will echo and ricochet around in there, causing all sorts of change long after she's stopped talking. And the other thing about Martha is that she's an instigator. Um, she makes things happen, which is wonderful. I've seen that happen in a lot of different cases. She served on the board of the affiliated New Thought Network for several years and really shaped the organization up. So it's in financially and organizationally the position that I was willing to run for the board, and I got elected to it a couple of weeks ago. So thank you for making room for me, because I wouldn't have done it without you running point. Let's welcome Martha Creek.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. Um, I accept that. And you know, the law that says whatever you value and appreciate in me is a reflection of you. So I bow to that in you and to each and every one of you, and those of you that are here. So I am from Bug Tussle, Kentucky. So now's your chance to dart off or just listen to the recording if you can't bear the thoughts of that. So that's where the Beverly Hillbillies came from. If you look into the trivia, and it's shifted a little bit over the years, but it's exactly like it's depicted. So a very rural part of Kentucky, right on the border of Kentucky and Tennessee. And it's important in many ways that, have you ever had the sense that you were born into a family as an alien? Do you ever look around at your family and go, what in the world? Like, is it just me? Can you relate to this? And then some of us went, ooh, I am out of here. OUT out of here. So I'm going to move to California because I need some space. And then everywhere we go, have you heard this before? Everywhere we go, there we are. So then where does it leave us then to say, okay, so then all of this was on purpose. My placement is on purpose. The dynamics in the family are on purpose. The relational dynamics are on purpose. So then I can be mad and irritated, frustrated, fed up over this, opposing them all the way to the grave, hurt. And you know, the scientists have proven this. We're getting high off this of being offended. It's its own addiction. So it's no little thing to have something opposing us, to have somebody to disagree with us, to have somebody to think differently than we think, to have somebody to believe something different than what we believe, even a nuance of what we believe, and to allow it. To accept the full spectrum of the human beingness, the full spectrum of the human relational dynamics, the full spectrum of the human intellectual dynamics, the emotional dynamics, relational dynamics, and to say, instead of cutting our little handy dandy line down the middle and going, I accept this and I'll have none of this, thanks. And then not noticing the consequences of that simple little binary but patterned, archaic, albeit binary form of classifying that, to say, I've got to get the line down. I've got to get the line down. I've got to have less of this polarization. I've got to have less of this good, bad, right, wrong. And some of us high righteous new thoughters parade around going, well, I don't believe in good and bad. Oh my God, that's so archaic. I don't believe in good and evil. It's like, yes, we do. We call it positive and negative. It's the same old paradigm. It's the same old thing that says this. And it's like, then there's this middle of this, that's where all the power is. So then, even when I can't accept things as they are, as long as I don't oppose things as they are, I'm in power. I'm empowered. I'm in power, not force. So power that has power, power that's sustainable, power that's causative, creative, generative. The law of our teaching, the basis, the principal base of our teachings, the causative use of the mind, which I have no power when I start to get into force. And oh, the temptation, oh, the allure to see things as right and wrong and good and bad and positive and negative, versus backing up from it to say there's this, all of this exists, alpha and omega, and everything in between, not alpha or omega, alpha and omega and everything in between. So then that in between can feel pretty messy sometimes. Have you noticed? It's like, oh, then I realize I'm all right. Then I repeat it. Then I'm back in the messy middle again. Then, oh, I realize, oh, there's another option. I do a prayer. I do an affirmation. I do a minute of meditation or longer. And I go, oh, I remember who I am. And then I forget. And then I say, what's that look on her face? How dare you use that tone with me? Yes. Reality. Reality. The reality of this whole spectrum. And the good news is reality rules, and I don't have to be ruled by it. So reality rules, and my alignment with reality, my accepting what I cannot change, my wise causative use to change what I can, and the absolute deliberate determination to know the difference and to practice it. And then practice makes progress. Practice makes progress. So then I'm not living over here in this polarity or that polarity. I'm less stuck. Then I have an innate, inherent capacity for neostasis, for new stasis instead of homeostasis, stuck in the way of it, stuck in the way of being that the species has been for 2,000 recorded years. Then the progression of the human as a species, or the regression of society, the regression of the species, then, if we believe in, as we teach and claim to believe in, quantum theory, quantum mechanics, quantum effect, then every single thought, pause, presencing myself, every conscious breath I take, every prayer, every intention, every letting go, renunciation, elimination is effective, causative. This is good news today. Gospel, they say, gospel, good news that says, oh, then I matter. My presence matters. My consciousness matters. And how I'm progressing my consciousness matters. And how I'm tending to the emotional field, and how I'm tending to the mentation and the mental fields, and how I'm tending to these old patterned, instinctual, hardwired, but not so hardwired they can't be rewired pathways, that I hold a capacity and a calling, an impulse to rewire. to form a new neural pathway that says, in any situation, regardless of how painful, regardless of how messy, I have an option in consciousness to relate to it differently. So then, regardless of what presents, and this will frighten some of you and free the rest of you, I don't get to pick what happens. I can, however, pick when I'm in an upper room of the mind or an upper chamber of the heart, how I'm going to relate to what happens. Herein lies the power of the universe, not just in theory, but what we've been practicing, some of us for decades. So we're no longer at an age where we can afford to postpone this, or where we can afford to go new thought light, LITE. It's time to go new thought light, LIGHT, and to have a new thought about new thought and back to our basics and the principles of our teaching. And then we cannot afford to postpone what needs to be done, and needs to be done right away. So let's see then, what would it be like in your life if you were willing to turn up your luminosity dial, just a dial, just one. So keep your meditation going and dial it up, and keep your renunciation going and dial it up, and keep your zeal going and dial it up, and keep your imagination going and dial it up, and keep your faith going and dial it up. Like, I can't see how this is going to turn out. I can't see this yet, I can't even honestly call it good. And I'm willing to. I'm willing to see this. I'm willing to see this differently. And to continue in that direction, and to accept that this is not linear, that this is not a tick box exercise. Like, oh yes, I know the principles. Oh yes, I can quote Ernest Holmes. It's like, so what? Until this is embodied, until this is lived out, then it's just another theory, just another concept, just more mentation. So until and to the degree that we accept the whole spectrum, everything's included here. Everything that is included. And then continue to develop my relationship with that, so that I then am empowered and equipped, well equipped, confidently equipped to be with this differently, until we free the whole world, so to speak. And to accept the whole world, the whole spectrum, is free to agree with you or to disagree with you. Until you have given that freedom, that they're free to like you, they're free to not like you. They're free to invite you, to not invite you, to include you, to not include you. They're free to love you. They're free to not love you. They're free to see things the way they see them. And they're free to see things differently than the way I see them. And until I have given the whole world, the whole spectrum of humanity, its freedom, I can never have freedom. So in order for me to be free, I have to align with what is the whole spectrum. Not agree with it. That's the good news of the day. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to condone it. I don't have to vote for it. I don't have to placate it. And I don't have to live in opposition, at war with it either. That is such a relief. So in the middle of this, not way down here on this polarity, not way down here in this polarity, but somewhere in this middle that's ever changing, that is like it, don't like it, love it, don't love it, will, won't, don't, can't, should, shouldn't, need, don't need, included. So get a sense of this today. Of who you would be even with our human wounds, even with the suffering in the physical, the suffering in the human learning processes that include suffering. If we believed, if we knew for sure that none of this is in vain, that this is part of our creation, it's a part of our next iteration of ourselves. And that in and through it all, including the messy middle, the messiness of relationships, the messiness of losses, the messiness of grief, the messiness of not getting what we wanted, in and through it all, we're not only going through it, we're growing through it. And who would you be if you embodied that? This too is growing me. Even this challenge spurs me to grow, spurs my growth. And not sadistically, not masochistically, just I am going through it and growing through it. And at times it will feel messy. And at times it won't go the way I wanted. And nevertheless, in all situations, I am sustained. So then that dreaded worry and fear about falling apart, the dreaded falling apart experience maybe wouldn't be so dreaded. Like, I am sustained. I am growing through it and going through it. So get a sense, an embodiment of trusting the transformative process, the transformative pattern, and that in all things, including the messy middle, God is. God is here. God is, even in this. So then, even in our wounds, the wounds are made sacred. Sacred wounds. And then our actual and ordinary life, the journey of the whole journey of our life becomes more clear as a godly life. So even in the messy middle. So get a sense today as we pause and begin to reflect here, who you would be as it is if you didn't mind. You don't have to like it. You don't have to love it. Who would you be if you didn't mind? And get a sense of that in your body. And this is a reading, and I don't know from who. So maybe some of you would know, you might recognize it. Barely the day started and it's already 6 in the evening. Barely arrived on Monday and it's already Friday, and the month is already over and the year is almost gone, and already 40, 50, 60 years of our lives have passed. And we realize, some of us, that we lost our parents, friends, and we realize it's too late to go back. So let's try, despite everything, let's try to enjoy the remaining time. Let's look for activities that we like. Let's put some color in our gray. Let's smile at the little things in life that balm our hearts. And despite everything, let's continue to enjoy the serenity this time, the serenity in the time we have left. Let's try to eliminate the afters. I'll do it after. I'll say after. I'll think about it after. We leave everything for later, like after is actually ours, because what we don't understand is that afterwards the coffee gets cold. Afterwards, priorities change. Afterwards, the charm is broken. Afterwards, health passes. Afterwards, the kids grow up. Afterwards, parents get old. Afterwards, promises are forgotten. Afterwards, the day becomes the night. Afterwards, life ends. And then it's often too late. So let's leave nothing for later. Because still waiting, see you later, we can lose the best moments, the best experience, best friends, best family. The day is today. The moment is now. Love to you all. I bow to you. I thank you for the ways you serve your own soul's progression and the progression of the soul of humanity. Thank you. MarthaCreek.com if I can support you. Blessings.